The beginning of 2022, everyone is very hopeful for a brand new year amidst the coronavirus pandemic that had started in March 2020. Everyone is hoping for a fresh new start and a brand new start to their lives. Unfortunately, this hope was not the case. As of 2020, or as of 2022, February 28th, President Vladimir Putin of Russia decided to wage war against the sovereign territory of Ukraine, which poses many questions. Why are there tensions between Russia and Ukraine? Is Russia fearful of NATO? What instigated the war? Well, hopefully in this informative speech, I will be able to recollect 3 points and explain 3 different points of what had started the tension of Ukraine versus Russia. Russia versus Ukraine. Ukraine's first, out of the 3 main points that I have, Russia's proposal for NATO membership, the annexation of Crimea, and the violation of the Minsk agreements. This here is the current Ukrainian president, Volodymyr Zelensky, and this is the current Russian president, Vladimir Putin. First off, the Ukrainian proposal for NATO membership. Well, what is NATO? NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization that was created after World War II by Western European countries as well as the United States in order to prevent an attack from the Soviet Union at the time. The treaty organization allowed for one country to be invaded. All subsequent countries would wage war against the aggressor. So why would Ukraine want to join? Well, if Ukraine is a part of this treaty organization, any attack from Russia would be a violation, thus creating a war between Russia against the United States, Germany, France, United Kingdom, and so on. Ukraine would also develop better relationships with Western Europe and most likely sever ties to Russia. Well, Russia has a very strong political power in Ukraine right now and hopes to destabilize its military. An excerpt from Teres Kuzio, a graduate from the University of Birmingham, also stated that many of the countries within the Eastern Bloc, former Soviet Union states, also wish for a membership into NATO to prevent their countries from being invaded by Russia. Which leads us into the annexation of Crimea. Russia, knowing that Ukraine wants to join NATO, has decided to put more political influence into the Ukraine. From 2010 to 2014, Russian-backed president denied the proposition by the EU for Ukraine to join the EU, the European Union. This made a lot of Ukrainians upset, as well as Western European countries and the United States, which pressured the Russian-backed president to leave Ukraine and then stay in exile in Russia. Russia and Vladimir Putin delegitimized the authority of a newer president that had taken over power in Ukraine after the subsequent president had left. Russia also accuses the EU and the US for staging a coup in this certain situation against the previous president in order to elect a brand new president with more Western ideals and Western policies. Russia then started to retaliate by taking over Crimea. And according to the American Journal of International Law by Sir T. Grant, Russia had invaded Crimea on March 21st, 2014. But this wasn't the only way that Russia was able to destabilize and put power into Ukraine. They also did it by funneling resources and weapons into separatist insurgents along the Ukrainian-Russian border in East Ukraine. Cities such as Luhansk and Donetsk are currently occupied by the separatist movement, funneled by fuel in Russia, in order to take more parts of Ukraine. Well, Ukraine didn't want any more aggression, and the separatists didn't want any more aggression. Thus, the creation of the Minsk agreements. The Minsk agreements were put in place to try to cease fire and demilitarize these zones to stop any more bloodshed in these areas. Unfortunately, Ukrainian soldiers as well as these separatists continued to shoot at each other and cause violence, which had severed the Minsk agreements and put it in a deadlock. According to the CEPS working document in 2016, the Minsk agreement was officially severed as soon as separatists from Luhansk and Donetsk both decided to launch military offensives into deeper parts of Ukraine in order to establish more parts. Well, hopefully what you got from this presentation, a good summary here is the Ukraine's proposal to join NATO had ultimately scared Russia into supporting separatist groups across the country, especially in eastern Ukraine. Russia's speculation of Western